Good evening and welcome back. It is the last round of the Tata Steel Chess Tournament 2025, which is taking place in Wakenzi. And we have an interesting game to show us today. This is a game between Gukesh, who was the reigning world champion, versus Arjun, another very strong, well, what am I talking about? Guys is like number three. I don't know. Probably was have lost some rating now. Number three player in the world. Of course, another Indian player. This was a game Gukesh lost. Why I have no clue, but we're about to find out what really happened in the game. I think it needed just a draw to be able to win the tournament. Unfortunately, he lost and he had to settle for a playoff, which he did with Prague. All right, let us get right into this game. Gukesh was on the white side. He opened the game with the move e4. e5 was played. Knight to f3. Knight f6. We have the Petroff defense, aka the Russian defense. Knight takes e5 is played. d6. Knight goes to c4. Normally in this position, the knight like I said, the knight normally comes to f3. That's the most played move in this position, knight to f3. Of course, knight c4 too is played. So knight c4 is played. Knight takes e4. Queen goes to e2, saying, you know what, I'm trying to just win a piece. Of course, you don't want to have to move your knight back, saying, well, you can't even move the knight because it's a pin. But, you have possibilities like queen to e7 because you want to make sure that, for example, if you push this pawn, he's probably going to, it might push his own pawn, move his knight back, maybe somewhere, and then you still tied to the defense of your, you still have problems on the e file. But in this situation, I think he has to play queen e7 immediately, and I think that's what he played, queen to e7, breaking the pin immediately. So now he's free to move the knight to f6 or whichever square he wants to. So knight e3 is played, the most played move in this position also. And all this actually are all theory. Man, I don't know, these guys, they spend a lot of time just studying all kind of stuff because knight e3 is played, so knight goes back to f6, knight to c3. In this position, I probably would have make the move d4, just trying to get a pawn in the center, and probably follow with the move c3 because I don't want to move my knight to c3. I want to make sure there's a pawn attacking this c3 anytime this knight decides to attack. But we think differently. They are super GMs, we're not. So knight c3 is played. Bishop goes to e6. g3, I like the move g3. And of course it makes a lot of sense because your bishop is actually being blocked right now by the queen. Makes a lot of sense to get the bishop to this diagonal and try to see if something can come out of it. But even looking at the position, it's still pretty much even. Nobody really has an advantage here. So knight c6, bishop to g2, queen to d7. What's the point of queen to d7? Of course, the possibility is to get the bishop to e7 one, and also having a battery is not a bad idea. Especially if white has to castle to the king's side, he's going to have to be worried about the bishop coming here, getting rid of this bishop, which defends the king, running his pawn all the way down, opening up the file, and then, checkmate can come very, very quickly, or a huge loss of material. So queen d7 is played. Castles, I don't know. I don't think I'll castle right away. His king is still on e8. He can castle and start attacking. But yeah, he has a light square bishop, but you can always get rid of it. This is almost very similar to the dragon sort of setup. The dragon, this is Sicilian dragon, where you get rid of the dragon bishop and they just push a pawn all the way, exchange, and they just try to checkmate the white king. So castle is played. Of course, it's been played before. Doesn't mean it's the best move for this position. And of course, Guys just went to the queen side. He went 0-0. Like, okay, let's get this party started. So after 0-0, b4 is played. Now, b4 is actually one of the possible moves in this position. What would I have done in this position? I probably would have thrown the piece to d5. Probably the knight, the c knight, actually. I'll just throw that piece there. Now, the idea is I want to play c3, d4, and then I can always come with the b4, rook b1, and just keep going. At least, and this is one thing I always talk about. Whenever there is play on opposite sides of the board, the person that initiates an attack first or the person that makes contact first with the opposing king's position, or most of the time, have an advantage. So let us see how this game plays out. In this position, b4 is played. Of course, he says, no, I don't want to take that. Now, what could have happened if it takes here? I think, well, I don't know if this is the right, well, okay, rook b1 is possible. Uh, Knight b5 is possible. Putting pressure there. But the good thing is, white has a file it can work with, and black would have to start defending, in this scenario like this. So here, of course, he didn't play that. He pretty much pushed this pawn to e d5, creating a threat of his own, right? So he plays b5, attacking the knight, forcing the knight to move. So after the move b5, knight goes to a5. I really don't like that move. They said knight on the rim is deep. But this is the thing. After knight a5, there's knight to c4. What else? It's interesting why Arjun didn't play the most aggressive or the most logical or, the most, I don't know, knight d4 shall look good. Knight d4 hitting this coin. The queen has to go somewhere. So he plays knight to a5. Excuse me. d4, you have to play d4. Couple of reasons. You want to keep an eye on the central squares. You want to get this guy into the game as quick as possible. This is the good thing for either of them right now is nobody has actually been able to make a contact with the opposing position. So nothing much is happening here. And why is this so? Because they are still trying to get their pieces to the best squares possible. So after the move d4, now bishop h3. Black now makes a contact. If you watch all the videos I make this comment all the time. Anytime there's play on opposite side, the first person to make a contact always, most of the time, have an advantage or probably wins the game. So we could say in this game, black makes contact first with this king. Making a contact doesn't necessarily mean you are, it just means making a contact. Like this bishop is looking at this bishop. That's a contact. That's what I'm talking about. Because once you can engage, your opponent will have no choice but to start listening to you, to start it, responding to what your needs are. So bishop to h3 is played, and bishop captures. I don't get that move. I don't get that move. But either way, I don't think white can stop the black pawn from running down, taking, and then just dominating on this h file. I don't think white can stop that. But bishop takes h3. Wow, I don't get that. But at the same time, hey, these are super. This is not just super grammar. This is Gukesh. Who is Gukesh? Gukesh is a world champion. So bishop takes h3 is played. Queen takes h3. Queen f3. I like this move. I like this move not because I want to win this pawn. I like this move because I want to check on f5 to get rid of this queen. Leave me alone. Let that queen just get away. And then we can decide to deal with what happens in the position. And what happened in this game, Gukesh didn't really go for that. Instead, Gukesh went for a pawn, which is very dangerous because the time you're using to take that pawn, your opponent can actually use that time against you. And I think that's what happened in this game. So after the move queen to f3, h5 is played. This is very logical. We will have to open up this position. We would have to open up the position. So f3 is h5 is played. Knight takes d5. h4 keeps coming. Knight takes f6. I don't know. I thought about this knight f6. I'm like, you're going to have two files on you. It's going to be really hard to defend because think about this. You're going to have two files, right? And in an open position, you really won't have any chance to attack this king. So even though you're up a pawn, right? You're busy defending your king, and the pressure can keep mounting. That's the thing, And if you're not somebody that likes to defend, you don't want to get into situations like this. So knight takes f6, g takes f6, rook to d1. That's one of the very bad moves in this position in this game that Gukesh made. Rook to I don't know. I have no idea of the rook to d1. I don't know why that rook to d1. I don't know. Queen g2. I'll just beg this queen. Please let me be peace. Just get away from my territory. So queen g2 is the move I would have played because you can't have a queen breathing down the neck of your king, supported by a possible rook on h8, and then you're okay with it. Of course, only if you're Gukesh. So rook d1 was played, takes on g3, takes back with a pawn. Now, all this is based on the fact that there is no checkmate. True, there is no checkmate. But one thing we can agree on with this position is White's king's position has been compromised forever. Now, if you also check my videos, this is one of the things I mentioned. When you have a king, I'm going to go over king first. This also applies to other pieces. But I'm saying king because the game is about the king. When you have a king that has absolutely no squares to move to, that should worry you. I mean, I don't know how your king can just be on G1, you go the law left, right. You are just, and you are cool. You can't be cool with this. So this king is, it's just a matter of time. This king cannot move anywhere. And think about it. White has no attack yet. Nothing yet on the black king's position. Nothing yet. Even though we have the pressure on b7, we don't have a bishop that can put pressure here. But even if we do, we have a knight stopping all those mumbo jumbo. So that's not going to work. So it's this situation, it's a matter of time. I'm sure at this point in time in the game, Gukesh should be like, I think I messed up in this game. Because looking at this position, this is a permanent weakness for the white king. And like I said, it's going to be a matter of time, especially when you can use the two files or even triple on this, depending on what you want from this position. So knight to c4 is played, improving the placement of your piece. Hey, this is one of the things I talk about. Improve the position of the piece, improves how your piece is placed. Knight to c4, just trying to get closer to this king, just trying to get close to the center of the board. A4, A5, A6 is so too slow. You don't have all that luxury. Because once this bishop comes out, rook comes out either here or here, because anytime you make a rook move, don't just think about the file you're trying to dominate. Also look horizontally. Maybe there might be something. So knight c4 is played, bishop to f4, developing the bishop to the most logical square, right? I'm going to move my bishop to f4. I'm going to put pressure on c7. Unfortunately, there's only one pressure I can put on c7. No, there's nothing else. Or maybe I can play knight to c, what's it called? Knight to d5. But then, what can I get from it? Because there's always a check, king move, check, takes, rook takes, check, king move, rook takes, and he says, thank you very, very much, just take the knight. So we can't play knight d5 here. So like I said, this position is, of course, it's pretty much good for black. White, I don't know, white's king is just really, really, this is more than being compromised. Anyway, bishop f4 is played. Bishop a6 says, let me get rid of that your bishop. Now, this is the thing. If you take and I take back, I'm going to mate you on h1. So the queen is tied down to the mate thread on h1. Now, if you take and I take back, I can triple here and just make life very difficult for you. And which way to go? So at this point, it takes, rook takes, a plays queen to g2. Finally says, now, please, can you just let me be? But I think it's a little late here because after they move queen to g2, the engine says black is up 3 points. Of course, this is not the time you exchange pieces. When you're having all this pressure, you don't want to exchange pieces. You want to keep the pressure on the board. Queen to h5. Now, rook to b1, threatening what? Nothing really. Probably trying to use the b5 square. It's not so much about, because pawn push, you have 2 pawns that can just capture. Pretty much, maybe it's about using that square, the b5 square. But even if you get to the b5 square, then what? I don't see a whole lot of things white can do in this position. But let's keep going. Now there's a triple. We have triplets on the h file. Triplets. This is looking really bad for the white king. Rook b4 is played. Knight goes to a3, attacking the c2 pawn. b6. Like I said, the idea of b6, I don't think it's necessarily to gain anything, but maybe open up the file. Even though you still can't open up the file because black still has his pawn on the b file. So b6 is played. It captures. Rook goes to a4, attacking the a7 pawn and the knight on a3. Knight goes to b5, protecting the pawn, attacking the knight on c3. Rook goes to d3. Says, you know what? I want to defend my knight, and of course, I want to find a way to see if I can, get away with my king. But of course, you cannot move your king right now. So we really can't move the king right now. So let your king just stay there until something happens. So knight takes, rook takes, check. King goes to c, to d8, f3. Now, finally, it creates a loft where the king can actually get out, but it's very temporary. I don't know how much this king can really, run away from this position. because we have two kings that are really, really open. But I think the white king is more compromised because these guys are just waiting. And what's going to happen is the queen is going to run off, and then this rook are just going to come down and just try to make this guy miserable. And looking at this position, it's easy to tell who's better. Now, this is one of the things I talk about. If you look at all the pieces on the board, we have both major pieces, right? We have the two rooks and the queen. If you notice one thing about all these pieces, they are all defending each other. You can't say the same thing with the white pieces. This is a weakness, it's undefended. That's a weakness, undefended. Well, that has to be a weakness. Well, that is a weakness. Because anytime you have to defend anything with your king, that's a weakness. So, even looking at the position without any kind of threat, you could tell white is in a lot of trouble because all these pieces are very uncoordinated. And these two rooks are getting ready to come all the way down to say hi to this king. It's just a matter of time, and white would have to just throw in the towel. So at this point, queen b5, now this is what I just mentioned. Queen b5, what is it doing? Attacking his weakness. Now, if this rook was actually here, let's say the rook was on c4, we wouldn't need to worry about the rooks right now. We probably could have just pushed the pawn forward. Even if we push the pawn, rook check is still very strong because if you take, there's quick check, and then this is game just pretty much over. At this point, he plays rook takes, spiteful capital. Let me just take a pawn. And if I'm going to go down, let me go down eating something. So rook takes a7. He says rook check. Oh, wow. I can just go to f2. No big deal. But wait a minute. It says blunder. Like, taking wouldn't have helped either because if you take, I check. And you're just still losing. So he plays king h2. And of course, after rook 8 to h2, white resigns. Very sad loss for Gukesh, but stuff's happened. And I think I can say, like, by the time he got into the middle game, by the time he got his h file opened up, I'm sure he would have been worried. That would have really bothered him because you pretty much have no counter on your opponent's king, and he has all this file that he can work with. So it's just a matter of time. And unfortunately, it's not about pawn structure. If it's about pawn structure, black is winning because white is winning because this black pawns don't look good. So after the rook h2, Gukesh resigned, and this is the first loss of Gukesh since he became the world champion. These Indian guys they are brutal, but yeah, they are not even looking at each other's eyes. So that's about it. And I think after this game, there was a tie for the first position. There was a playoff, and we have an eventual champion. Hopefully, we're going to try and check out some of the other games that were played by both the champion, the guys that tied with him, and some of the interesting games that were played in the last round. Thank you again. This is Darcy Chess, and I'm really happy always coming here to give you all these videos. And I hope you're also happy watching all these things. So you all take care, have a wonderful week, and see you soon. Bye for now.